Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. Jenny sighed as she scrolled through her social media feed. Pictures of her friends on exotic vacations, trying new restaurants, and doing fun activities with their significant others filled her screen. She glanced over at her husband, Dan, who was snoring on the couch with the TV still on. Same old routine, every single night. They'd eat a quiet dinner together, then Dan would plop himself in front of the TV until he eventually dozed off. The spark they'd had when they first started dating 5 years ago had fizzled into monotony. Jenny closed her laptop and walked over to the couch. She gently shook Dan's shoulder. "Hey, babe, let's go upstairs." Dan blinked awake slowly. "Huh, what time is it?" "Almost midnight. Come on, sleeping here will just make your back hurt tomorrow." Dan groaned as he hauled himself up from the couch. They trudged up the stairs and started getting ready for bed. As Jenny pulled back the covers, she said, "You know, I was thinking maybe we could do something fun this weekend. Get out of our usual routine a bit." "Like what?" Dan asked through a yawn. "I don't know. Maybe try a new restaurant in the city. Or we could go to that new axe throwing place that opened up." Dan slipped under the sheets. "Those sound fine, I guess." Jenny felt her excitement deflate. Clearly, Dan wasn't enthused by her suggestions. "Forget it, it was just a thought," she mumbled, clicking off her bedside lamp. The next evening followed a similar pattern. As Jenny cleared the dinner plates, she looked over to see Dan already flipping through the TV channels. She steeled her resolve. They couldn't keep going on like this. Something had to change. "Dan?" she asked tentatively. "Can we talk about something?" He muted the TV and turned to her. "What's up?" Jenny twisted her hands together nervously. "I just feel like we've been stuck in a rut lately. Our relationship just feels stale. I want us to reconnect and get that spark back." Dan furrowed his brow, looking thoughtful. "Huh, now that you mention it, you're kinda right. Things have gotten a bit boring and routine." "Right?" Jenny said, feeling a rush of relief that he agreed. "So what should we do about it?" Dan tapped his chin for a moment. Then his eyes lit up. "Well, this may sound crazy, but something adventurous we could try is... I could wear women's clothing." Jenny's eyes went wide. "You mean like cross-dressing?" Dan nodded sheepishly. "I've always kind of wanted to try it out. I think it could be a fun way to mix things up." Jenny took a moment to absorb this. It wasn't something she'd ever expected to hear from her husband. But the more she thought about it, the more intrigued she became. "You know what? Let's do it. I think it could be really exciting," she said with a growing smile. Dan looked surprised, but pleased. "Yeah? Okay. Awesome." They decided Dan would go shopping that weekend to pick out an outfit to try. On Saturday morning, Jenny dropped him off at the mall. "Have fun," she said. "I can't wait to see what you come up with." Dan looked nervous but determined as he headed into the mall. Jenny passed the time with a mani-pedi and caught up on some reading. A few hours later, Dan texted that he was on his way home. Jenny tidied up and changed into a cute sundress, feeling eager to see what he had chosen. The front door opened, and Dan came in holding a few shopping bags. "Welcome home. How did it go?" Jenny asked. "Really good. I think I found some fun stuff," Dan said with a grin. He looked excited in a way Jenny hadn't seen for a long time. "Well, don't just stand there. Show me," she said. Dan laughed and brought the bags to the bedroom. He pulled out a blonde, curly-haired wig and placed it on his head. Jenny giggled. "Oh, wow, you look great as a blonde." Next, Dan revealed a red and white polka dot dress cinched at the waist with a wide belt. He paired it with some low-heeled Mary Jane shoes. "It's adorable," Jenny said, clapping her hands together. Dan beamed, his initial nervousness fading away. "Just wait until I have the full look together." He went to change in the bathroom while Jenny waited eagerly on the bed. After a few minutes, the door creaked open. "Ready?" Dan asked shyly. "Come on out," Jenny said. Dan emerged in the polka dot dress and blonde wig, walking a little unsteadily in the heels. He had put on some subtle makeup, mascara, blush, and lip gloss. Jenny's mouth fell open. She knew her husband was attractive, but as a woman, he was absolutely stunning. "Wow," she breathed. "You look incredible." Dan exhaled in relief. "Yeah, this feels surprisingly natural." He did a little twirl, making the dress flare out. Jenny grinned and went to him. She ran a hand through the long blonde curls. "I can't believe what an amazing woman you make, and I love that color on you." She could tell Dan was really enjoying himself as he posed in front of the mirror. "Who knew I'd look so good in a wig and dress? You have great style, babe." They spent the next couple hours with Jenny helping Dan get comfortable walking in heels and teaching him her tricks for applying makeup. Dan was a quick learner and got the hang of it quickly. "I wish I'd discovered this side of myself sooner," Dan said as he carefully reapplied his lip gloss. "It's so freeing to embrace my feminine side." "I'm glad you get to share this part of yourself with me," Jenny said, giving him a peck on the cheek. They decided to fully commit to the experience. Jenny put on some upbeat music and they danced together, twirling around the bedroom. For the first time in forever, they were both giggling together like teenagers falling in love all over again. Later, they ordered pizza and ate it picnic style on the living room floor, talking and joking easily. Jenny found herself really seeing her husband again, not just taking him for granted like she had been. The boredom that had taken root in their relationship was shaken loose. When it started to get late, Dan washed off his makeup and changed into pajamas while Jenny put on a movie. She smiled to herself as he cuddled up to her on the couch, back in his usual t-shirt and sweats, but somehow seeming like a new person. "So what did you think?" Dan asked. "I think this was an amazing idea," Jenny said. "I haven't had this much fun with you in forever." "Me too." Dan planted a kiss on her cheek. "Maybe we could go shopping again next weekend and find some new outfits to try." "I'd love that." As the movie credits rolled, Jenny took Dan's hand and led him upstairs. She was amazed by how a simple act of courage and intimacy had reawoken the spark between them. As they settled into bed together, she knew this was just the beginning of discovering new adventures together. The next morning, Jenny made a hearty breakfast of pancakes, eggs, and bacon. As she and Dan ate at the kitchen table, Jenny said, "You know, I was thinking more about your cross-dressing idea. I want to be as supportive as possible." Dan smiled. "Yeah, I'm glad to hear that." "Maybe we could come up with a feminine name for you to use when you're dressed up," Jenny suggested. "It could help you get into character." Dan's eyes lit up. "Ooh, I love that. What name do I look like?" "How about Brittany?" Jenny said after a moment's thought. "I think it suits the fun, bubbly vibe your outfits give." "Brittany," Dan tried it out. "I think it's perfect." They spent the rest of breakfast happily discussing what other clothes Brittany would like to wear. Jenny was delighted by how enthusiastic Dan was about embracing this side of himself that had been suppressed for so long. After cleaning up the breakfast dishes, Jenny said, "Why wait until next weekend? Let's go do something today." "That's a great idea," Dan said, grinning excitedly. "I'd love to get a full makeover." Jenny grabbed her laptop and started searching for local salons. "Ooh, this place looks perfect. It has hair, makeup, nails, everything." She booked Brittany an appointment for that afternoon. "Okay, you've got a 2 p.m. session. We better go get you ready." Dan hurried upstairs to start preparing. He shaved his legs and arms smoothly. Then he put on a lacy black bra and panty set. Next came the wig they'd picked out, curled into flowing blonde locks. Dan put on just a touch of mascara and lip gloss for a base. "Honey, are you almost ready?" Jenny called. "Just about." Dan took a breath as he looked in the mirror, seeing Brittany starting to emerge. This makeover was going to fully bring her personality to life. Dan stepped out of the bedroom in a casual outfit of jeans and a pink top. The wig and just a touch of makeup made him look undeniably feminine. Jenny whistled. "Girl, you look fabulous. Let's get you beautified even more." Arm in arm, they headed out to the salon. At the salon, a receptionist greeted them. "Hi there, who do we have today?" Jenny squeezed Dan's hand supportively. "This is Brittany. She has a 2 p.m. appointment." "Wonderful! Right this way!" The receptionist led them back to a styling station. "My name's Amanda, and I'll be working on you today." "Nice to meet you," Dan said in a higher-pitched voice. He settled into the salon chair. Amanda looked Dan up and down appraisingly. "So, what are we thinking for today?" Jenny jumped in. "Well, Brittany here is looking for a full makeover. Hair, makeup, nails, the works." "Absolutely, we can do that," Amanda said. She ran her fingers through Dan's wig. "Let's start with this beautiful hair. I'm thinking some honey blonde highlights to liven it up." "That sounds amazing," Dan said, relaxing into the experience. Amanda wheeled Dan over to the sink to wash the wig hair. As she massaged his scalp, Dan closed his eyes blissfully. He had never gotten his hair washed by someone else before. Once the hair was squeaky clean, Amanda trimmed the ends and added buttery highlights throughout the curls. She styled it with a loose, natural-looking wave. Jenny grinned when Dan was wheeled back over. "Oh my gosh, I love it. You look so pretty." Dan beamed, shaking his head back and forth to watch the curls bounce. "Thank you. It feels incredible." "Now let's move on to makeup," Amanda said. She wheeled a cart over, full of various palettes, brushes, sponges, and tubes. "I'm thinking a romantic, feminine look for you," she told Dan. He nodded enthusiastically. Amanda started smoothing on a hydrating primer, followed by a medium coverage foundation. "This will give you a nice glow," she explained. Using a fluffy brush, she lightly dusted Dan's face with a soft pink blush. Amanda carefully applied wispy false lashes and coated them in black mascara. "Look up for me," she instructed. Dan blinked his eyes open wide as she ran a pencil along his lash line. "Just a touch of brown eyeliner to make your eyes pop," Amanda said. She filled in Dan's brows just a bit to give them more definition. For the finishing touch, she painted Dan's lips a warm, rosy shade. "There, take a look." Amanda spun the chair around to face the mirror. Dan gasped when he saw his reflection. The wig, makeup, and blush made him look utterly feminine. Jenny came up behind him and squeezed his shoulders. "Brittany, you are so gorgeous." "I feel like a princess," Dan said dreamily, still staring at this beautiful woman gazing back at him. "Now let's get your nails done to complete the look," Amanda said. She led Dan over to the nail section, and he settled in with his hands soaking in a bubbling bath. The nail technician introduced herself as Nicole. "What color were you thinking for your manicure?" she asked Dan. "How about a pale pink?" he suggested. "With white tips." "Perfect, that will look so dainty and pretty," Nicole said. She massaged and scrubbed Dan's hands before trimming and filing his nails into a feminine oval shape. Next came the polish. Nicole slowly painted on 2 coats of blush pink, followed by the crisp white tips. After blowing on them to dry, she said, "Okay, you're all set." Dan admired his glossy nails. "They're beautiful. Thank you so much." "It was my pleasure. You look absolutely stunning altogether," Nicole said warmly. Jenny and Dan walked up to the front to pay. "Thank you for an amazing makeover," Dan said to Amanda. "Of course! It was so nice meeting you, Brittany. You have fun going out and showing off your new look," Amanda said with a smile. Dan practically floated out to the car, giddy with his fully realized femininity. "Where to next?" Jenny asked as they buckled in. "How about we go to a nice restaurant for dinner so I can really live it up as Brittany?" Dan suggested. "I know just the place." Jenny drove them to a swanky Italian restaurant downtown. She linked arms with Dan as they walked inside. The hostess greeted them with a smile. Table for two? Right this way. Dan felt a thrill as heads turned to glance at him on their way to the table. He gracefully lowered himself into the seat, enjoying how it felt to be out in public as Brittany. Over breadsticks and wine, Jenny reached across the table to squeeze Dan's hand. I'm having so much fun with you tonight, and you truly are radiant, you know. Dan blushed, matching the rosy glow of his makeup. It was really special sharing this experience with you. I feel so free and confident as my true self. Their entrees arrived, ricotta stuffed shells for Dan, chicken parmesan for Jenny. Dan took a dainty bite, chewing carefully to avoid smearing his lipstick. He relished the whole romantic atmosphere. After dinner, Jenny said, "Ready for the big reveal?" She pulled out her phone camera and handed it to Dan. He opened the front-facing camera and saw himself fully done up for the first time. Wow. He turned his head side to side, utterly enchanted by this feminine vision looking back at him. The makeup accentuated his delicate features, and the nails and hair pulled the whole look together. You're ravishing, my dear, Jenny said, and Dan blew a kiss at the camera. All too soon, their magical evening was coming to an end. Dan almost didn't want to take off his makeup or wig. He felt so comfortable this way. While washing off his makeup, Dan smiled, thinking about their fun day. He went to bed still feeling glamorous and exhilarated. The next morning, Jenny rolled over and planted a kiss on Dan's cheek. Morning, beautiful. I have a fun idea for today. Dan stretched and sat up, brushing blonde curls out of his face. Oh, yeah? What did you have in mind? Well, Jenny drew the word out dramatically. How would you feel about us spending the day wine tasting? We could go dressed up together as girlfriends. Dan's face lit up. That sounds amazing. I'd love to go out with you as Brittany again. Yay, I was hoping you'd be into it, Jenny said. She jumped out of bed. Let's start getting ready. Dan went to take a shower, enjoying the chance to shave his legs again. He toweled off and did his makeup routine, going for a daytime look with peach tones. Meanwhile, Jenny ironed 2 sundresses for them to wear. She laid them out on the bed, a red floral one for herself and a white eyelet lace dress for Dan. After blow-drying and styling his wig, Dan put on a lacy bra and underwear. He stepped into the eyelet dress, loving how the skirt swished around his knees. Here, let me zip you up, Jenny offered. She fastened the back of Dan's dress for him. You look so pretty. So do you, Dan replied. Jenny did a twirl, making her floral skirt flare out. They both slipped on strappy sandals. I feel so fancy, Dan said, admiring their dressed-up looks in the mirror. Jenny called for an Uber to pick them up. As planned, she introduced Dan as her friend Brittany. The driver didn't bat an eye, complimenting them on their cute outfits. They were dropped off downtown at Vintry, a popular wine bar. Inside, there was rustic decor with exposed brick walls and barrels used as tables. A hostess greeted them. Table for 2? Right this way, ladies. Jenny and Dan giggled as they followed her. They were seated at a tall table with bar stools. A server came by and offered them tasting cards. We have flights available with 6 different wines each, he explained. That sounds perfect, Jenny said. She ordered a red wine flight for herself, and Dan chose a white wine flight. When the first round arrived, they clinked their glasses together. Dan grinned as he sipped, enjoying the crisp, fruity flavor. Jenny moaned appreciatively at her deep, oaky red wine. This is delicious. They worked their way through the flights, discussing their favorites and comparing notes. The atmosphere was lively, with groups of friends laughing and chatting. Dan felt so comfortable being out as Brittany. No one gave him a second glance. He and Jenny could relax and have fun together. After finishing the wine tastings, they decided to check out another place down the street. They thanked the server and headed out hand in hand. That was so nice, Dan said as they walked. I'd love to check out more wineries sometime. For sure, that's a great idea, Jenny said. She led the way to their next stop, a cocktail lounge called Twist. The mixology bar had a sleek, modern vibe with metal stools and neon signs. A bartender in a dapper vest greeted them. Jenny ordered an old-fashioned, and Dan asked for a Moscow Mule, loving the chance to act feminine with his drink order. They sipped their cocktails, feeling a nice buzz from the day drinking. Dan crossed his legs daintily, amusing himself by acting as ladylike as possible. "We have to take a pic together," Jenny declared. She pulled out her phone and they posed cheek to cheek, drinks held up. After a few more cocktails, they were both feeling happily tipsy. They laughed easily, resting hands on each other's arms and knees like affectionate girlfriends. A few older women chatting nearby kept glancing over at Dan and Jenny. "Your dresses are so pretty," one of them called out. "Thank you," Dan sang back in a girly voice. He winked at Jenny, delighted that they were passing so seamlessly. After one more round, Jenny paid the tab as Dan touched up his lip gloss. "I'd say this was a successful ladies' day," Jenny declared. "It was magical," Dan said dreamily. Arm in arm, they staggered out together into the sunset, feeling giddy and free. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.